So, Rich, here we are again.
Here we are again.
Warblings.
Oh, it's good to be back. It's good to be back. I've so missed you.
Thank you. I've missed you too. Where's Salisbury Cathedral gone? What have you done with her?
It's the 800th anniversary of Salisbury Cathedral being started to be built, actually. Unfortunately, this COVID malarkey's taken a bit of a knock to the whole celebrations. But we've got rid of. I like to mix it up a bit. You know, can't be having it all the same.
No.
Change is the only constant, as they say at the moment. That's for sure.
Well, it keeps me on my toes. 1 week you're virtual, 1 week you're not. So that's good.
That's it.
What are we going to talk about this week then, Rich?
Well, we've put a bit of a curveball in this week. We've mixed it up a little bit. So you went out and had a chat with these people. They're called customers. That's it, isn't it?
That's right. I did.
Ones.
Yeah.
Business owners.
I did. Yeah. I practice what we preach on this every week, Rich, and I went to talk to some clients. Yeah. So for listeners and viewers that are subscribing every week, we wanted to, I guess, share some client perspective on how they are coping in the current environment, how they're focusing on their clients and their customers to get their businesses back up on an even keel. And this week, I'm talking to one of my clients, a business called Dan Cook, Carpentry and Building. So we're focusing on the construction industry this week because they're one of the first industries to some of them haven't stopped, but most of them now have gone back to work as of around May the 11th. And it's really interesting, Rich. I know you've listened to the interview, but really interesting listening to Dan when I interviewed him. And I asked him, how has the last few weeks have been? And he was really, really honest about how tough it's been for them, both on him and his people financially, the problems that's caused for his family. And actually now kind of how he's looking forward. So yeah, we'll hand over to Dan, and there's a little bit of me talking to him in there, so apologies for that. But yeah, we'll hand over to Dan and see what he's got to say.
Fantastic. Well, we'll hear what they've got and we'll see what he says.
Okay, Dan, thanks for joining us on our R&R chats. This week, we are really keen to start talking to some of our clients about the impact that COVID-19's had on their business and how they're planning their way out of this. And we've worked together now for a number of years, and we're really keen to get your view on how it feels to be running a construction business in the current environment. So to tell the watchers and the listeners, Dan, a little bit about Dan Cook, Carpentry and Building Limited.
We are a carpentry and construction based company in South Devon. We specialise from small extensions right the way through to luxury new builds. We're currently working on a couple of large new build projects for the higher end, but we go right across the field really of jobs we do. All of my guys are highly skilled tradesmen. We just aim to produce a top class bulk, really.
I think you're being a little bit modest there, Dan. All the years I've worked with you always focus quite highly on client experience and making sure the client gets what they want. And how has it been for you in running your business in the last few months? How hard has it been?
We made the decision to close on, I think it was Tuesday I'm just looking at my calendar. Tuesday the 24th of March. I made the decision after sort of following government guidelines. They hadn't actually called for construction to shut and close, but after sort of a very restless night, I made the decision to close. Looking after really my staff, my clients, and myself, and morally, and looking after sort of the NHS and what was going on, trying to protect everyone the best I could. So I had 12 people on at the time. So financially, it's hit everyone. I had to make that decision. Initially, very, very hard indeed to make the decision, but ultimately knowing it was the right decision to make. And then since then, it's been tough trying to work all finances out, work out where and how we're going to get back to work, when we could get back to work. And at the same time, constantly trying to have chats and WhatsApp groups with my staff to check on their well-being, really, and see how they're all getting on through it. So yeah, it's been tough, but we're getting there.
So it's been a really tough time, isn't it? What was really interesting just listening to you then was you talking about you wanting to make the right decision for your team, primarily for your clients, keeping them safe. Ultimately, looking after the wider community in the NHS, which I think a lot of businesses or many businesses have taken that decision,
yes.
which is really commendable. But you've also articulated brilliantly how hard that's been, and particularly from a construction perspective, I guess you've probably seen some of your peers carrying on, but you've made that decision for your clients.
Yeah, there has been. I've seen sort of through from day one, really. There's still been people who are, in my opinion, sort of flaunting the rules and taking it upon themselves to work. Obviously, I understand everyone else's different circumstances, but yeah, morally and for everyone's safety, that's why we chose. We've slowly we're trying to get back up and running at the moment, but it's a slow game.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because I'm interested to understand really how have you planned getting your business back on its feet? Because I guess you started to trade again now, right?
We have, yeah. I personally have been back for the last 2 weeks, just trying to get things into place, and doing a few smaller jobs which I could do safely on a couple of the sites we had, just so things could keep moving when more people return to work. But also implementing health and safety and trying to work out, because it's new to everyone. It's not your standard health and safety where we can just go, right, it's you wear gloves for this, you wear a hard hat for that. It's completely out of that now. We're having a look, follow guidelines, government guidelines, and see what we can do and where we can learn. It's constantly looking at new guidelines to learn.
So how did you create a plan to make that happen then?
Really looked at the jobs we have, look at the jobs we've coming up, and looking through the jobs and deciding what we can start safely. Right. And then bring in, like myself, it's been financially, it's hit in another way again, because financially now we're going to be hit with more PPE, which is currently being put onto all of the websites at ridiculous prices, because that's what the companies seem to be doing. So it's costing us a lot of money for sanitizers. We've got some face masks, which if we have to work in close proximity with people, we've got masks, signage to go up on the site.
And that's so this sounds to me like a huge amount of planning that's gone behind getting your business back up and running, in terms of planning the jobs to make sure your team and your clients are safe, to all of the different equipment that you need to make that happen. How it must be a logistical nightmare. How have you communicated that to your team in terms of the different ways of working?
Since the start, since we locked down, we've had a WhatsApp group, which I quite often put stuff on there to inform the lads of stuff which is going on, rather than having to ring everyone individually.
Yeah.
Before we've managed to get together. So I had a WhatsApp group which we've communicated on there. And now we're slowly getting back into working on the sites, so different sites we've got running. I've currently got toolbox talks, which I do on site, which is that. There's one I took to a site this morning, which we've started. So the toolbox talk really runs through what I expect of my staff, to look after themselves, to look after our clients, what they also expect of me, what they need me to be doing to look after them. So that sort of in your toolbox talks all of that, which funnily enough at the moment, normally on certain sites doing certain work, you would have to wear gloves. That they're following different guidelines. We've taken that out of the toolbox book because it's safer not to wear gloves at the moment unless you're doing something which is clearly at risk to your hands, because with the COVID-19, it will stay on your gloves, where if you're just using your hands, you can wash your hands more frequent than you will wash gloves. So you're stepping back on some health and safety and moving in other ways. We've got risk assessments, which all the lads will read through and then sign. And in anyone new to site, if any individual days, if we've got more people turning up to site, they will have to read the risk assessment, sign that, and adhere to the rules on site at the moment. That's where we are. And like I say, we got signage put up, really reminding people for washing your hands, where the sanitising areas are.
From everything from planning the jobs to physically getting your people onto clients' sites each day, to planning how they kitted out with PPE, through planning through whether they wear gloves or not. It sounds as if there has been so much of a logistical change to your day-to-day working. That must put a huge pressure on you and the team. Yeah, it is. Yeah, definitely. Everyone's just got to be a bit more aware at the moment that I believe sort of production will slow down, as in what we're managing to produce on a day-to-day basis, because for one, you have to try and socially distance. In the construction industry, it's not easy to socially distance. Obviously, we've got stuff in our risk assessment where they say you can work closely with someone for 15 minutes a day, 15 minutes at a time, wearing the correct PPE. But we want to minimise that, really. If we can move away from that. So that's why I've been picking jobs we do to try and keep people away from each other. Yeah. Trying to do a lot more external works, because out in the fresh air, there is a lot less risk for that. One final question, Dan, 'cause I know you're a busy guy, and I want you to get back to your site. But one final question: what have your team and your clients said about the measures that you put in place to keep them safe and give them a better experience of coming to work and having your team on board? Yeah, well, again, the lads are all sort of adapting to it. But they're used to following health and safety guidelines anyway. They're happy that I've put measures in place. They're all following it. So far, so good. No one's had to have a sort of a telling off or a warning to sort of follow it. Everyone is following it quite well, as I think everyone has taken this seriously from the start, really. Great. Clients seem happy with what I'm doing, that we're putting measures in place to, ultimately protect them as well. So, but yeah, it's going to be a slow game of getting back to some kind of normal, I believe, because there is a lot of jobs we're not going to be able to undertake easily anyway, should I say. We're not going to be able to do them, but easily for some time, I believe. So it's a challenging time ahead, but are you broadly optimistic about the future? Yeah, definitely. Like, we haven't. I know some people would have lost work in this time. We haven't lost anything work-wise. Financially, it has hit me as a company, because I've lost. Obviously, being not working for 7-8 weeks is financially damaging. But we haven't lost any contracts. They've been paused. So as long as we can get back to them in the right manner, we're all right. And I do believe there might be some turbulent times in front of us. If people are sensible, I believe we can all carry on to some kind of normal back through business. And do you think the fact that you are a client-led business, because I know from conversations we've had, you've been spending a lot of time talking to your clients, haven't you, keeping them in the loop, telling them what's happening. Do you think that has impacted on the fact that you've managed to retain as much work as you have? I'd like to think so. I'd like to think since I started
on my own, my sort of client experience, I'd like to think that does hold me in good stead. And I interact with my clients quite a lot. We do a lot of talking. I like to make sure our clients are happy through every stage of a build, through every stage of their project. I like to chat with them a lot. I like to make sure they're happy. I like any issues. I like to be brought up rather than sort of boiling up anywhere. Yeah, if my clients are happy, I'm happy normally.
That's great, Dan. Look, I really appreciate your time today, and I'm just glad things have got back on track for you, and you're back on site and you're building people's dreams again. And thanks for your time, and thanks for being a great client yourself. So
no worries, thank you.
Thanks.
So brilliant chat there, Ryan. Thanks very much for doing that. I think it was really interesting to hear the, as you mentioned at the start of the interview there, the honesty that came across within that. And the one thing that I started to pick up on a lot was the whole complexity of this going back to work thing. We talk about this new normal and et cetera, and a bit of PPE and a bit of social distancing, and wow, it really is a complicated affair, isn't it? And then you throw in the mix this strange thing called a human being and their behaviour, and oh my Lord, no wonder people are nervous and the confidence levels are lower. But I think that's one of the key things. I distinctly remember that the comment around, it's not normal health and safety. We can't say you put a hat on, you put a pair of gloves on because that's what the law says. These are guidelines. This is guidance. The 2 meter piece. This is all guidance. So it really does seem to be there's another challenge for businesses out there to come and develop the way they work with this. And as we keep mentioning, how we then go beyond that into the behavioural piece. So there's a 2-step process almost that I'm hearing. And that involves completely and utterly your teams, the people you work with, first of all. What's their confidence levels? That's what I'm hearing. And how are they adapting to it? Are they ready? And then you've got to consider the customers as well. So teams, customers, we mentioned it previously, but it's great to hear it from business owners themselves. Was that something that you picked up? Obviously you were there during the interview.
Yeah. I might have looked asleep though. So that's probably why you suggested, was I there, Rich? But thanks for that feedback. But what was really evident, Dan's worked with us for a number of years now, and I think one of the things he didn't mention that I haven't mentioned yet, and you haven't mentioned yet, which we mention every week, is he drinks a lot of cider, and that's got him through this. He didn't mention that, but no, you're absolutely right. What was really interesting when I was watching Dan and his body language when we did the interview was how hard it's been on him, how much he feels for his team and his clients. These projects to Dan are massively important, and they're massively important because he knows that he's creating people's dreams when he's building the extension or the house or whatever he's doing for them, and for that to be put on hold really weighs heavy on his mind. And he talked about during that interview, didn't he, about he took the really difficult decision to stop working, but he felt that was right for the safety of his team and his customers, and more broadly, he was thinking about society and the NHS when he talked about that. Mm-hmm. And he really did think about that before he made that decision. But to pick up on a key point you made, the core element of why he made that decision was about safety. And the experience not being difficult for his team, and therefore the experience not being difficult for his customers. And then when he's had to put these guidelines, as you said, put them in place, he's had to think quite creatively. So, he's really spent time engaging his team around the new risk assessments they've had to do to help them feel safe. He does, I don't know if you saw, if you clocked that he does the toolbox talks every morning, which I thought was really innovative. So every morning he's on site and right, guys, time for a toolbox talk, and he talks to them about what they're going to do today, and safety and making sure they're feeling comfortable about that is really, really important. And then engaging with the client every day to just say, where they are and how they're getting on. So he's really thinking, but the complexity that's added has slowed everything down for the business. But he knows that's the right thing to do, from a perspective of helping his team feel safe, and therefore his customers feel safe, and therefore the experience he's still giving them is world class. And he's really rare, Dan. I've never quite met a business owner like it. He's so focused from the construction industry. I mean, he's so focused on making sure that the experience is right for his clients. So yeah, it's added complexity, but he's taken it in his stride, and he's getting on with it.
Sounds like it really, really fits into that when we were speaking the last podcast we did about this planning, communicating and then testing. That communication piece is coming across loud and clear. Communication, be it with your teams or with your customers, because the complexity is slowing things down, it's changing things. So you have to let people know what's going on. You can't make the assumption that they understand. Whenever we're in a business, we're running a business, we know what's going on. We understand the thinking that's gone behind things. As soon as you step outside of your environment, your customers and the people around you have been removed. They are one step away, and then they could be 2 or 3 steps away from what's going on. And so therefore they need to be told about these things. So the communication piece coming through really loud and clear on the plan it, communicate it, test it process.
Yeah, he did. He talked at length, didn't he, about from the beginning, when he had to impart that awful news to his team that he was going to have to cease and pause. And some of those were contractors, so they weren't getting paid. But he kept them in the loop. He set up a WhatsApp group. He was really clear and kept them informed all the way along. When they came back, met with them, went through the, as we said earlier, went through the risk assessment. He's at risk of repeating myself, but he then has his toolbox talk. That it's that ongoing communication. But to do all of that, he had to sit down and really think through that plan. So you're absolutely right. It's the plan, it's the communicate. And then I think I asked him at the end, what are your customers saying about this? And he was really clear that they're fine. They're really comfortable with what we're doing. And actually, when I'm talking to them, they feel comfortable enough to let us back into their homes and make these changes. So that's almost the acid test, isn't it? So you're right, Reg. It's the same message from last week, getting these businesses back up and going, focusing on your clients. If you're going to focus on your clients, you have to plan it, you have to communicate to your team, and you have to test it with your clients to make sure that they're comfortable.
Fantastic.
So what are we going to warble about next week? Are we interviewing somebody else for next week?
Oh, yeah, I think we do. We'll see who's out there. We'll give them a shout.
We'll surprise people next week. Yeah, we might have a really, really sort of big surprise up our sleeve, or we may not. Who knows? You'll have to tune in to the Warblins next week to find out who we've been talking to about their client experience. But it's great to see you again, Rich.
Yeah, you too, Vela. And we will see you lot out there again next week.